Have you ever just felt like your body is running on some seriously old software? Like it's a little bit glitchy? Well, you're not wrong. Today we're going to dig right into the code and expose your body's evolutionary bugs.
We all kind of like to think of ourselves as the peak of evolution, right? These perfectly tuned, high-performance biological machines. But what if I told you that's not really the whole story? Not even close.
In fact, and I'm quoting our source material here, your body is loaded with what you could call sketchy leftover hardware. Honestly, you can think of it like the original source code for Human 1.0 that nature just kind of forgot to patch.
All right, so let's pop the hood and get started with the physical evidence. I'm talking about the actual spare parts rattling around inside you that, for the most part, serve absolutely no purpose anymore.
So first up, the tailbone. Yep, that tiny little bony nub at the base of your spine is the last, lingering reminder that your ancient ancestors had tails and were swinging through the trees. And what's its big function now? Well, it mostly just hangs out, waiting for you to slip on some ice or sit down too hard and completely ruin your entire week. It really is one of evolution's cruelest little jokes.
And then there are wisdom teeth. Our ancestors absolutely needed these extra grinders for their diet of tough, raw plants and meat. But our food got softer, and over time, our jaws literally shrank. So now these teeth show up super late to the party and just crash into everything like a drunk guest at a wedding, forcing you to get painful surgery to remove a body part you never even needed in the first place.
Okay, time for a little audience participation. Go ahead and put your arm on a table, palm facing up. Now, just gently touch your pinky to your thumb. See that? Do you see a little tendon that pops up in the middle of your wrist?
If you see that tendon, congratulations! You've got the palmaris longus muscle, a leftover from ancestors who needed extra grip strength for climbing. But here's the wild part. About 15% of people just don't have this muscle at all, and it makes zero difference to their grip strength. It is, literally, a spare part.
So, that's the junk hardware we're carrying around. But the bugs aren't just physical parts. Oh no. Now let's get into the software. I'm talking about the weird reflexes and bizarre biological glitches that are running in the background of your system right now.
You know when you get goosebumps, right? Well, that is a reflex from our much, much hairier ancestors. For them, puffing up their fur helped them trap a layer of air to stay warm, or it made them look bigger and scarier to a predator. For us, without all the fur, our skin just kind of flexes for no reason, making us look a little bit like a chili plucked chicken ready for the oven.
This next one, it really speaks to biological efficiency, or maybe just laziness. See, every single human embryo starts from a female blueprint. That means nipples get installed as a default setting on everyone. And then, when an embryo develops as a male, evolution just never bothered to write the bit of code to delete them. It's a completely harmless but pretty funny biological quirk.
Okay, now for a literal wiring glitch in your brain. Do you ever walk outside into the bright sun and immediately have to sneeze? That's the photic sneeze reflex. It happens because your optic nerve gets its wires crossed with the trigeminal nerve, which senses irritants in your nose. So your brain gets a blast of light, gets confused, and thinks, whoa, must be dust in here, sneeze.
It's a totally harmless mix-up in your head's circuitry. And if this happens to you, you are definitely not alone. It turns out that somewhere between 10 and 30% of the entire population are official sun sneezers.
How about this one? Can you wiggle your ears? If you can, you're firing up your auricular muscles. These are total leftovers from ancestors who could actually rotate their ears to pinpoint the sound of a predator or prey, kind of like a cat does. For us, it's a completely useless skill, but you got to admit, it makes for an excellent party trick.
But you know, these evolutionary bugs aren't all just harmless quirks and fun party tricks. This is where the story takes a bit of a serious turn, because some of this leftover programming clashes pretty badly with our modern world, and it creates some very real problems.
So what's one of the biggest problems? Believe it or not, your immune system is fundamentally bored. Just think about it for a second. Your ancestors' immune systems were like elite special forces, constantly at war, fighting off a world that was just full of dangerous parasites and microbes. Their world was absolutely covered in germs. And our world? Well, it's sterile. It's bleached. We live in a world of hand sanitizer and antibacterial soap. We've got this highly trained army inside of us, with nowhere to go and nothing to fight. So what does a bored army do? It starts picking its own fights. It goes on the offensive against totally harmless things like peanuts or pollen, which we call allergies.
Or even worse, it gets so confused it starts attacking the homeland itself. And that's where we get devastating autoimmune disorders.
Here's another major mismatch. Because we switched from chewing tough, raw foods to eating soft, processed mush, our jaws have literally shrunk over the generations. And this, in turn, has narrowed our nasal cavities. Our source material puts it perfectly. It's like we're trying to power a V8 engine by breathing through a coffee straw. And the result? An epidemic of snoring and sleep apnea.
Exactly the same thing is happening with our eyes. Our eyes evolved to be these incredible biological sniper scopes, perfectly calibrated to scan the distant horizon for predators or for food. But what do we do with them all day? We force them to stare at glowing rectangles just inches from our face.
For an average of 10 hours a day. We're taking these long-range precision instruments and forcing them to do constant extreme close-up work. Is it any surprise that rates of nearsightedness or myopia are absolutely skyrocketing across the globe?
But here's the real takeaway. These things, they aren't really failures or mistakes. A better way to think of them is as a changelog. They're like a fossil record that's written directly into our own bodies, telling the long, messy, and absolutely fascinating story of how we got here. Which, of course, leads to one final big question. We've spent this time looking at all the old bugs, the leftovers from our distant past, but it makes you wonder what new evolutionary bugs is our modern lifestyle creating right now for the humans of the future?
Snag creates a great time.